Hello and welcome to a pointless video where I talk about 2 attempts to play Empire Total War. This is mainly because I wanted to do some interesting campaigns, so I attempted some weird things that ultimately didn't work, and I spent so long doing it that now I either have to make a video about me failing to do it, or not release a video, and that's bad. So here we are, looking at, first, a campaign as the Crimean Khanate. Now I was excited to play as these guys because I figured with the Khanate in some way we could pull out some annoying horse archer tactics and break the game. That's what I was hoping for. But actually we are like a minor faction among minor factions really. We have 2 units really. We can have Cossacks, a low quality infantry unit, or later in the game we can recruit mounted Cossacks. Right now we can't recruit those. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole army. I think you can get a trash cannon unit as well. So they're not a very usable faction as it turns out. We're a vassal of the Ottomans and we're at war with Russia, a much stronger opponent, but I just marched out to give it a go anyway. So here's my battle attacking Kyiv in Ukraine, and it brought me back. It was a nostalgic look at Empire Total War when I saw the enemy's mortar crew drop their siege pieces and just run with their swords held aloft into our gun lines on their own, leaving the rest of the army behind. And it reminded me of years back when I used to play Empire Total War, seeing this happen all the time, and starting to remember why I swore I'd never play the game again. All good stuff. So anyway, I actually started the campaign again after installing a submod that adds more units to minor factions. Thing is, all it really adds to us here is some line infantry and some other line infantry. What I wanted as the Khanate was to deploy like winged hussars or horse archers. You actually can get a horse archer unit, it's just not very good, and horse archers don't actually work in Empire Total War for the player. We'll talk about that glitch later on. Anyway, in this campaign, I moved in a different direction and attacked some Russians on a bridge here. They intercepted me, which reminded me that interception battles are a thing in these older Total Wars. I remember thinking a while ago that they really should be in the new ones, but I don't remember why. I don't remember why I liked them, but whatever. Here we are, fighting them again. This time, the only particularly interesting thing that happened was another classic all-out attack move that I remember seeing a lot, and that is taking the general and just charging ahead of the army into the line of guns. Good stuff. The only reason this actually somewhat works is because Cossack infantry aren't very good at shooting, and they're not a disciplined line infantry unit, so they're unable to do things like firing by rank. It's basically a massive mob, but only a tiny group of them can fire, so they're very bad at range. But good enough by the looks of things to repulse that general's bodyguard charge. Good stuff from them. I did discover that the Cossack cavalry are actually really good. Not only do they have okay stats, they appear to be able to shoot in melee at point blank range and just absolutely annihilate things real fast for virtually no casualties. So that was pretty good. We can recruit them if we unlock carbines, but we also can't research anything, so yes, that would be a long way off. After that I took this force and attacked Kyiv again, giving us another field battle where we've got some more interesting glitches to look at. In this one we had some good terrain to use. There was loads of cliffs and stuff that I could theoretically set up on to have a really good defense. Of course it's not that easy because a lot of the impassable terrain extends quite far out from the rocks, so there's actually a lot less space here than it looks like. And that causes immense difficulties getting the units to just stand anywhere. So after a while wrestling with that, we set something up. The enemy do have cannons though, so camping on a hill isn't the best idea. They could snipe us to death. So because of that, I sent my cav around the back of the enemy staff to take out their cannons and their mortars as well. Luckily they didn't notice me doing this, so this works out. You can see there are some enemy cav nearby, but they weren't paying attention handily enough, so we did take out the cannons. Then they all started moving off to attack us, except for these guys here, who are, well, they're just Empire Total Warring out over here. And that's going to cause issues actually, because the enemy is trying to move their whole formation, and this unit is part of the formation, so the AI will switch off until this unit's done doing whatever it's doing. It is actually very slowly moving. You can see this kind of single file trail, like the matter being pulled into a black hole from a dying star, is gradually moving towards the actual formation. So eventually this might unglitch, but that might take a while. So I tried to dislodge them. I thought I'll bring over the gun cav, because in this state, luckily it turns out the enemy can't attack back, so I can just shoot at them at point blank range. And the nice thing about these Cossack Cav is that they're a really good ranged unit, since unlike Cossack infantry, they can shoot through themselves, so all of the unit fires at once, meaning even with their small unit size they have greater firepower than infantry units. And this does nothing, so eventually I go into melee thinking this might dislodge them and reset their moves or whatever. It might have actually done that, but actually we defeated them in the melee after weakening them with the gun attacks. So I guess that solves the thing as well, because now this unit's out of the AI's formation, meaning it will let the other units move, because they're not currently waiting for the formation to assemble. And in the meantime, we can attack these homunculuses. You can see the effect of the impassable areas near rocks. They apparently still think it's passable, they're trying to get into them and then just walking into each other in a nice clip fest, all looking good. But at least, as for the battle, the enemy did actually come and attack me after all that was over. And here we can see, for some reason, the enemy's Cossacks can do the shoot through themselves thing, so they actually have a lot of firepower. Luckily, we have more units, so we can match them and win that gun battle. Also, they have some axe troops who would annihilate us, but all of the rocks mean they can't get to us, and they couldn't pathfind up for whatever reason, so they just got stuck and died. Here we are. A while later, you can see with the little clock in the bottom left, this battle lasted almost the entire 1 hour time limit, but eventually we gradually got the enemy to come up the hill and die, and then I rage quit because that was extremely boring. So here we are with another campaign. I thought maybe there's another weird, interesting faction I can play as, and another faction that the units mod I mentioned talked about was Mysore. So here we have been given some extra units by the looks of things. This one doesn't have any name because I'm pretty sure the mod conflicts with Darth mod, which I'm also using. But there are a variety of heavy cav and infantry options, which I wanted to play with. You can probably tell I'm not interested in going for a line infantry battling style faction like most of them are, just because it's whoever gets fire by rank first wins, and I wanted the campaign to be a little bit more memey than that. For this campaign I had something specific in mind, which we'll talk about more later. I started off by allying with the Mughal Empire, who control most of India, so now we just have to fight our neighbours, the Maratha Confederacy, who only have 2 regions. So an ideal first target, went and attacked this one, and here's a bit of a battle, mostly just the trash that was the garrison of this town. To start off, we've got an experiment here, where I attacked some musketeers with my dervishes, our sort of main melee unit. This is the base game's melee unit, not one of the newly added ones. They charge in with a bunch of axes and get to work. What I wanted to see is something similar to what I saw when I played as the Cherokee a while back. That being that charging axe units will just annihilate ranged units, and we can use this to do some micro-heavy meme tactics. However, in this case, it does not appear to be happening. Actually, we traded extremely poorly with the musketeers and started losing 2 guys for every 1 that they were losing. So it's just not happening. We do have really high melee attack on this unit, but it's not enough apparently. Maybe the enemy's high melee defense is good enough. Ranged units tend to have high melee defense in the game, probably to make melee units less powerful or something, because the game's meant to be about ranged units. Still, looks like the pikemen are as powerful as ever. They beat like 5 units at the same time at the back and easily defeat them. But yes, our dervishes failed, and that sucked, because I was thinking maybe of just spamming these guys and charging all over the map with an enormous human wave style strategy, but it doesn't work even against low level enemy things like musketeers who aren't even on the same tier as line infantry. So, bad news. At least the pikes, the elephants and the cannons altogether annihilated everything else the enemy had on the field, so we do win this battle. I was checking out the stats of these units here. They have really good morale and decent attack but low defense. And yeah, I guess that's just not good enough to overcome the defense focused melee stats of ranged units. We do have some good units we can deploy though, like these unnamed swordsmen who have maximum melee defense. That might be more like it, so there's still some hope for this campaign at this stage. The next thing I did is another experiment. I sent 1 unit of horse archers to attack the remnants of the musketeers that fled from that battle we just fought. I had this idea that maybe horse archers had been fixed. I did know they didn't work, but I thought maybe somehow because it's the future now it's been fixed. But no, Darth mod hasn't been updated for like 7 years or something, so I don't know why I thought this would have been fixed. Basically, you can see the problem here, and this applies to foot archers as well. It only applies to the player for some reason. I think because the game has cheats the AI uses to make their ranged attacks more accurate, for them, when archers fire, the arrows just go in a blob like in other Total War games and vaguely hit the target, but when the player has archers, they shoot at random. So it shoots out in all directions in a big spray, regardless of how far away the enemy is. And even at absolute point blank range, you can't hit something standing right in front of you because it will shoot into the sky. I have tested it out and it's just completely glitched. So that's a shame. This means my whole Khanate idea from earlier just really wouldn't work. Even if I could just deploy massive 2-mans of horse archers, they would just kill each other more than the enemy and certainly wouldn't do much. And yes, the horse archers then lost in melee to the survivors of the musketeers. And that was another blow to my morale for the idea of doing some sort of off-kilter campaign. Then though I went to attack the Maratha Capital. The issue here is they have not only a fort, but some garrison Hindu warriors who have really good melee stats for some reason, so it's not just like garrison trash we need to overcome. There's still hope though, because we do have cannons, we can destroy the fort if we want. And of course, some glitches might happen and we might just win for no reason. That's always an option in Empire Total War. Looks like a homunculus is forming in the gates, ready to defend against us as they combine their trash into one gigantic trash pile that might be strong together. A few of them actually phased through the gate and came outside, where they watched the walls being gradually blown up by the cannons. Basically, I thought we need to open a couple of breaches. It's a shame the enemy didn't stand on the walls because they would have been killed by this. Once we got a couple open, this happened, which is kind of what I was looking for. One of the units came outside and that's perfect because now they're out of the fort, we can attack them from multiple directions. And in this situation, even though they have decent stats, they just rout right away, so we're able to get rid of that first unit easy enough. The next set of troops runs into the front of a pike wall, so that seems okay, but you can also tell that the frame rate has now dropped to like 5 frames per second, and that's because of another classic Empire Total War glitch, and that is in sieges. If something's on fire, sometimes but not always, it absolutely annihilates the game's tick rate, which makes it somewhat unplayable. It does go away after a while, so that's good at least. Now I thought I'll attack this unit of firelock armed mob, basically the worst ranged unit in the game, with my axe troops, thinking surely we'll hack through them easily, they'll just rout or die, and we'll break in with all of our dervishes and start moving around inside the fort to rear attack their better units. Here we are then 10 minutes later, this melee's still going. Basically, our dervishes can't beat the enemy's lowest pure trash. We were trading 1 for 1 with them. We only made any progress because I put the elephants into the melee and they absolutely annihilate them. So I'm starting to think there's something in this game similar to how the archers don't work but only if you use them. That also applies to melee units. Melee units just suck, but only if you use them. My conspiracy theory here is that towards the end of the game's development they realised that archers and melee units are extremely good, because all of the things that make gun units good aren't necessarily simulated in the game because it has all kinds of glitches related to units being able to fire. They had to put something in the game to stop the player just spamming bowman and axeman as the Cherokee, something like that. And I'm guessing the same thing they did to bows, where they just straight up won't fire at targets, was done in some way to melee units, so they have like halved stats or something, which might explain why dervishes, which have like 4 times the stats of these firelock armed citizenry and stuff, can't beat them in a straight up fight. Not quite sure what's going on, but it's not going very well basically, this battle. They also did have some good units that eventually came in there as well, and that of course is going to make things even worse. The fact that we didn't rout the earlier units kind of compounds here, because now we're stuck and we can't do any maneuvers to overcome the other units, which we already saw have low enough morale to rout them if you just back attack them, but we can't do that. My one remaining strategy in this battle was to go for their general, or their captain I should say. That is this mortar unit that's standing on the capture point, or the crew of a mortar unit. So I'm attacking them with the crew of my guns. Looks like we just lost our own general over there in the melee, one of the elephants, so that's handy. But yes, we did take out their captain over there on the capture point, and that's going to give them the morale shock for losing their commander, and that was enough apparently to just push all of the rest of the enemy infantry off the field, so that worked quite well. Much better than trying to kill them with our units, at least. meaning we win this battle, but we lost kind of everything in the process, and I lost my morale. I was like, you know what, there isn't going to be anything fun to do with all of these weird minor faction exotic units, they just kind of suck. And that brings us to what my actual Empire Total War Abridged campaign is going to be, and that is to play as the Maratha Confederacy, the guys we were just fighting. I figured I'd still be able to do what I wanted to do with the Mysore, though it's not going to be as easy, and that thing is a little something that I call the Reverse Raj campaign, and if you want to know what exactly that is, then why don't you join me for the start of an actual Abridged campaign in a couple of days to find out how that's going to go.